often get commented that I'm ableist for doing these videos. And it's just, these people just throw words around like they don't even matter, actually. And those who call me ableist for saying that, you're the one actually being ableist.
So when he says that people throw around the word ableism, that might be the case, but people had real concerns with some of what you said in your videos. Like, you did say ableist things, and maybe if people are calling you ableist, maybe it's because you are. Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you who are new here, then hi, my name is Erica, and today I'm gonna talk a bit about the Dad Challenge podcast, and more specifically some of the things he said about fathering autism and disability in general that I found to be extremely ableist and offensive. This video is not to shame him, but instead to educate people and show them the kind of language and thinking that is extremely harmful to disabled people. And I'm gonna break it down into different segments. I have my notes here, so if I'm looking down, that is what I am looking at. I just got startled. It's okay though. That's how life is. But so the first thing I want to go over was, as I said before, I interpreted a lot of what he said as ableist, and what I mean by this is, if you don't know, Fathering Autism is a family vlogging channel that centers around a family with an autistic teenage daughter. I'm not going to use her name in this video just because I would rather not contribute to the exploitation, so I'm going to refer to her as A throughout this video. And if I put in clips of Josh from the Dad Challenge podcast, I'll try to cut out where he says her name, because he has put her name all over the internet. And as someone who's against exploitation, that just seems a bit off to me, but that could just be my opinion. So yeah, but
talk about how these kids are going to have huge problems in the future. We don't know what they're going to be. Dr. Kirk mentioned it in this episode here, and a bunch of things like that. So we talk about what ramifications. But when it comes to Abigail from Fathering Autism, something tells me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is going to be a daughter. Abigail is probably going to live with her family for the rest of her life. She's going to be either in long-term care or with her family, right? However it works out. Based on the content, for the time being, she's going to live with her parents. Now, I worked at a place called Christian Horizons in Ontario. Every Christian person that you've ever known at some point that goes to church has worked at Christian Horizons. And Christian Horizons is a they have all these houses all over Ontario for people like Abigail, okay? For people who have low functioning living, going to be in long-term care or with her family for the rest of her life. Okay, so, I mean, the privacy thing is twofold. In Abigail's case, yes, it might not affect her future because she probably likely won't need to apply for jobs or be in the social scene, dating and all that kind of stuff, you know, right? The same ramifications aren't the same for Abigail as it would be for someone who is non-verbal, who is just, you know, who is not autistic, right? That exists differently. But the other side of it is her private, because her future is different than a lot of these kids that are on YouTube, like Jess Fam, LeBrance, all these major big time YouTubers. Those kids are going to grow up and they're not going to have any privacy, but they have to live normal lives, right? They go to college, high school, they do all these things. They're going to have futures where they get to go to the workforce or not, whatever the case may be. With Abby, it's a little different. I've said this before, because she obviously will not be doing the same things as a kid that doesn't have ID and autism, right? She likely will be in care for the rest of her life, whether through her parents or brother or through a system or whatever the case may be. And so her future of privacy isn't the same. And that's what I've made the argument for. But
one of the things he said was that unlike other family vloggers with neurotypical able-bodied children, he will not suffer long-term effects from having her entire life blasted on the internet, because as Josh just assumes, he will not have to apply to college or get a job or date or have a social life, which is really fucking ableist. First of all, you don't know that, Josh. Not even doctors know that. People with profound intellectual disabilities still date. There are people with intellectual disabilities that go off to college. There are plenty of autistic people that go off to college and have successful careers and date and have friends and have a life. A may be aware that her entire life is being blasted on the internet. She may or may not like it. I'm not sure. I cannot speak for her. But him just assuming she's not going to have that, and assuming that that is what makes exploitation is if somebody suffers long-term effects and if society ostracizes someone as a result. Josh, that is gross. You are a disgusting person who just assumes disabled people live in this bubble where we don't have to deal with consequences. Plenty of disabled people go off to college. Plenty of disabled people are in relationships. Disabled people have children. And no, I don't just mean physically disabled people. I mean people with intellectual disabilities, such as Down syndrome. There are many people with Down syndrome that have had children, even when they do live in institutions, which I'm gonna go on a whole rant about institutionalization in this video. So yeah. Yeah.
they didn't go in and show the training. They didn't show anybody who's working there itself that has special needs.
Okay, so this section of the video I am titling Special Needs and Ableist Terminologies. So, if you've watched my channel before, you probably know that I don't like to go too in-depth into the language we use surrounding disability, because some people see it as trivial or as semantics, but as you may also know, I'm a graduate student of disability studies. Currently, I am going into my second semester of that, so I am a bit more educated than the average person on the language that we use surrounding disability. In particular, the term special needs is often seen as offensive by disabled people, particularly because historically it's been used to justify the segregation of disabled people. Like, for instance, you have things like special education. And that title is used to basically describe segregation in education. And I do realize that there is some good with special education and making sure disabled students have the resources and the time that they need. But I do think that there is a better way than just there is a better way than completely segregating an entire group of disabled students from their non-disabled peers. So, term special needs is extremely patronizing, and it is using a euphemism for a word, disabled, that does not need a euphemism, and often by putting euphemisms in place of just saying the word, you're actually stigmatizing something more, because you're saying that we have to sugarcoat something, when in fact it's like, I'm disabled. That is a part of who I am. I'm not ashamed of that. If you watch my channel, you know I'm not ashamed of that. And I want to end the stigma around the word disabled, and even around the word people with disabilities. I particularly tend to use identity first language, which is disabled person, but there are people, specifically those with intellectual disabilities, they tend to prefer person first language, like person with Down syndrome or person with intellectual disabilities. But talking about the autistic community, which Josh is particularly talking about in his whole series on fathering autism, for the most part, autistic people use the term autistic to describe themselves. Of course, every individual person is different, but as a whole, most of the community uses identity first language.
And it cannot be denied or argued, ignored. It's just not possible, because she cannot give informed consent. The end. Even though she is 16, doesn't matter. I've spoken to lots of people who are in the back end who deal with this type of world. Obviously, I worked in that world too. There's just no way that I don't think, and I think anybody worth their salt in this industry who's a psychologist or a therapist or a clinical psychologist, anybody like that in the world that understands autism and understands who Abigail is by watching her, can tell you, probably with most certainty, that there is absolutely no way that she can give consent. Okay, there's just not informed consent, because she is a low functioning autistic person, right? She needs support to wear diapers. She needs support to be fed. She's nonverbal, so there's not really anywhere she can consent there or understand the ramifications of what's happening, right? So right at that point right there, this video can stop. There's no the lavish lifestyle off the back of their daughter who has autism and IDD, who cannot consent nor will ever be able to consent. She cannot talk. She has a cognitive ability of some people place her between the age of 18 months and 6 years old. Right? These specifically, Abby cannot consent, nor will she likely ever be able to fully consent, with the understanding of what she's being put out there. And that's the only argument I need. I don't need anything else. So everybody's coming in my comments, getting all mad at me about how she can consent. No, it's just, and the fact that Asa and Priscilla both have said that she can consent to me is mind blowing. And then said she can't, and then said she can, and they keep wavering back and forth. But so I think they land right now. If you were to ask them to say no, she cannot consent, but they say, but we are her parents. We are. So she says that Abby can, consent. Abby is nonverbal. She cannot consent. IDD and autism, she has the capacity of, I think some people argue, between 18-month-old and a 2-year-old. And that's not shade, that's just that's who she is as a person with autism, right? So never will Abby probably ever be able to fully cognitively consent to what is being done to her. And I made the argument in the first video that it's not really about her future, because her future... Look, I know that Abby's having fun. She doesn't know what's going on. But they're doing this to sell products. And she can never and will never be able to consent to this, is what's...
I'm going to delve into a bit of a controversial topic, which is informed consent. So Josh talks a lot on his channel about informed consent because his channel is largely about the exploitation of family vlogging, and that children are incapable of giving informed consent because they are not mature enough to understand the long-term consequences of having their entire life on YouTube, and they just don't fully comprehend what they are consenting to. So with this, I will kind of agree with Josh that minors cannot give informed consent, but Josh multiple times, and I'll have a whole loop of him saying this because he says it so much that I have an entire loop of it, which I should not have to have, but anyway. But he says that A will never be able to give informed consent, which is not necessarily the case. In case you don't know, tests and exams and different types of things that measure people's intelligence and comprehension and cognition are not necessarily designed with disabled people in mind. And more specifically, they're not designed for people that cannot verbalize and have different modes of communication. So that being said, we do not know how much A is able to comprehend, how much she can give informed consent. So I don't think Josh should be saying that specifically, and this is why I'm using this argument, is because people often, especially people that are professionals working with disabled people, will use that argument that disabled people cannot give informed consent to stop things like disabled people having sex in institutions. It's also been used to justify taking disabled people's children away from them. And I think that's a very dangerous argument to start making, and I really hope that if Josh knew the implications of his argument, I really hope he would rethink that. But I'm not sure because I don't know Josh. And he might be like, yeah, take the kids away. Yeah, don't let them have sex, even though they're two consenting adults. And it doesn't matter if they're disabled or not. If two adults want to do something that doesn't harm anybody, you should let them do it. And that's what I'm gonna say on that.
And they have professionals take care of them, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because those people had amazing lives. Like, I can't imagine the amount of activities those guys did. I was jealous. I got to take them sometimes, and they had great lives. Parents came maybe once or twice a week, enjoyed dinner with them, and had a great life. But at some point,
And now I'm going to comment a bit about Josh's comments on group homes and other institutions that disabled people are often put in. And this specifically is more about the institutionalization of people with intellectual disabilities, but of course there are some physically disabled people that are also put in institutions, but I don't really think I don't think anybody should be institutionalized long term. But again, that's just my opinion as a disabled person. I believe people should always have the option to be able to live in their community with the support they need, which may be 24-hour assistance from a personal care attendant or a nurse. But anyway, Josh made comments like, he says he worked in a group home or an institution for people with severe intellectual disabilities for a year and a half. And he said, oh, and I was jealous of their life because they got to do all these things, like their lives were so great. That is patronizing, because it's like, Josh, would you want to be put in an institution and not have the option to live the life you want and be on the schedule you want? Like, whether you think group homes are okay or not, I would hope that most people would be able to agree that they still, like, it's not something to envy. And I just felt like that was a very patronizing and simplistic argument to make, because what Josh doesn't realize is institutions and even group homes, which, I mean, I'm not as harsh towards group homes, but anyway, they're breeding grounds for things like abuse, neglect, infection, disease, all things that we don't want, especially people that are high risk. And I mean, a lot of people in institutions get severely abused, and that's not okay, and that is a reality that I really wish Josh would bring to people's attention, but he did not. And this next point I would like to make is about Josh made this video where people were commenting on his videos about fathering autism, and he read the comments aloud and responded to them. In some cases, he rebutted them. In others, he's like, I'm not even gonna answer this, which, I mean, is its own issue. But anyway, someone wrote that if A was put into foster care and taken away from her parents, that she would likely face abuse and even maybe be at risk for SA. And Josh dismissed this comment as disgusting and said this person was a disgusting person and to never comment on his videos again. Now, Josh, disabled people are at increased risk of SA, particularly when they're put in situations like in foster care. And is your platform not for bringing awareness to the exploitation of different types of people? If that's the case, if your channel and your platform are truly about bringing light to these situations, then why would you dismiss a comment like that? And I mean, of course, I have my thoughts on why he would dismiss a comment like that, but you can draw your own conclusions from that. So, yeah.
What do you think about foster care? According to all statistics, it's fraught with neglect, abuse, and even financial exploitation. And it's worse for children with disabilities. Here are the facts. Foster children with disabilities. Roughly 1/3 of children in foster care have disabilities. Okay, I'm not even going to read this because it's not going to go to foster care. It's stupid. Okay? And also, if you think about this for a second, Abigail is a famous child with autism. If she ever got removed from that house, you know that because of her status, is the only probably good thing that would ever come from this, because of her status of who she is, she'd be very well taken care of in the public sphere. I promise you that. So your actions could lead to Abby being physically harmed. So she's telling me that what I'm doing here is going to lead to Abby's physical harm. Mentally abused and molested. Oh my God. That's where you landed here. You are sick, Tara Funson, and you're disgusting. Never comment on my vlog ever again. You're gross for saying something like that. So that's just a little snippet of the leg hump. I'm sending a couple people there to find out actually who has special needs there. And I know sometimes it's hard to see that on the surface. So I'm not going to say, well, they don't look like it, but we've got people going to take a look. Because if they're making these things, if they're saying these statements and they're not true, that is false advertising. You could be sued for that.
So this is something Josh said. A's family opened up a business, and they were claiming they hired a lot of disabled people to work there. Now, Josh said he was gonna have one of his friends go to their business and check if there were really disabled employees. First of all, you cannot always tell if somebody is disabled, particularly when it comes to disabilities such as autism or intellectual disabilities. You're not always able to tell. And also, you just should not go real life with this shit unless somebody is seriously in danger. Like, you should not have people infiltrating other people's real lives just to dig up dirt on them. And I don't know, that's just my opinion, but I think that crosses a major line. I want to delve into functioning labels. This is a very controversial issue within the disabled community, but in my opinion, labels such as high functioning or low functioning disabilities are extremely ableist and not helpful. Because doctors, when somebody is diagnosed with a certain disability, will often say, this child will probably never be able to walk, this child will probably never be able to live a normal life, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. They'll probably never be able to hold down a job, they may never be able to speak, and that may be true, but putting labels on people and saying that they're probably never gonna do this is putting people into boxes. And also, particularly with the term low functioning, it's insinuating that somebody will never amount to anything, which is a pretty fucked up thing to say. And especially when we're thinking about how Josh seems to define the term low functioning, because he does go into more detail about what he means and he says low functioning. He says that people who cannot shower or dress themselves or cook for themselves or clean for themselves are what he would categorize low functioning. But by his definition, I would be considered low functioning. And maybe that's true. But the thing is different people prioritize different things in their life. Like, I could probably shower myself if I really wanted to, but number one, it would take a lot of time and energy that I don't necessarily have. So I would have to sacrifice some of the other things I like to do, such as create content for YouTube, go to school, etc. But also, that doesn't make people less of a person. And I just don't like functioning. It doesn't serve a purpose other than to put people down, put people into categories. It's not helpful. So yeah, maybe I'm low functioning, but I also have 2 bachelor's degrees. I've had 2 internships in my life. I have a YouTube channel. I'm currently going to grad school, and that is not to flex and be like, oh look, I overcame my disability. Because if you watch my channel, you know I do not believe in overcoming disability. But that is to say, do not label people in that way. It's not helpful. And just because someone cannot shower or dress themselves or feed themselves does not mean they are a low-functioning individual and that their worth is somehow less than those who can do that. That's a very messed up thing to say.
They have all these houses all over Ontario for people like Abigail, okay? For people who have low functioning living skills, right? They can't dress themselves, they can't shower, they can't feed themselves, they can't take, to a degree, and it exists on a spectrum, but the people that I took care of for that year that I worked there were people just like Abigail. I remember one specific guy, implementation of behavior analytic services. It's almost like an ABA technician. We're not going to get into ABA and all that stuff because it's very divided, and that's a very divided topic like that really never has answers because everybody has a pro and con and everybody's different. So I'm never going to talk about it, but
now I want to get into Josh's refusal to delve into the ethics of ABA therapy. If you do not know, ABA is a therapy used often on autistic people, and it is to modify their behavior and make them act more neurotypical, which is inherently ableist in my opinion. And sometimes it uses extremely abusive techniques such as like negative reinforcement and like punishment, but even when it does use positive reinforcement, still at its core it is trying to weed out autistic traits when in reality there's nothing inherently negative about being autistic. So they're trying to do stuff that they shouldn't really do. But I'm more so talking about Josh in this case. His refusal to speak on this issue, to me, speaks volumes. Because his channel is supposed to be about bringing awareness to exploitation, in which case he should probably want to talk about this. And right now I'm going to give my speculation, my conjecture, whatever you want to call it, is just my opinion. But I'm thinking that maybe Josh did not want to go into this issue for fear that he would alienate some of his audience members, particularly those who may be ABA practitioners, who may have subjected their children to ABA. And to me, I think that's bullshit. If you're tiptoeing around an issue for fear of offending somebody, you're not being honest. And also, like, if this can help people, if this can bring awareness, because, I mean, let's be real here. Josh is, at least from my understanding, he is a neurotypical, able-bodied white man. So him bringing awareness to this could be so big, because when disabled people talk about this, specifically autistic people, they're often ignored. But if somebody who has those privileges speaks on it, he's going to be taken a lot more seriously. So him not speaking on this issue is cowardly, and he really, like, missed a big opportunity to make a big change. And he's just like, well, I'd rather not go into this divisive issue. But, honey, I hate to break it to you, but since you're an open misogynist on your channel, your entire channel is divisive. So I don't buy that you didn't want to bring it up because this topic was divisive. But again, that is just my opinion.
And say this with me, okay? I am valuable because I'm here fighting for someone who can't speak up for themselves.
One of the things Josh said that really bothered me was that he was being A's voice because she could not speak for herself. That's infantilizing, it's patronizing, it's paternalistic. It shows that you have some sort of a savior complex. Just because somebody cannot verbalize does not mean they do not have a voice, does not mean they cannot express themselves for themselves. They do not need you to speak for them, Josh. Maybe they need you to elevate their voice with your platform, but please do not say you are somebody's voice, especially when you do not even know said person. I don't know, that just bothered me when he said that, because I was like, everybody has a voice, even if they do not physically speak. So this is something I'm not gonna harp on for super long, but Josh also kept analyzing A's body language, and then he said I got called out for being ableist on this, but it's not ableist. It is ableist. Autistic people and neurodivergent people in general do not always have the same body language that neurotypical people do. So just because you think somebody's smiling and somebody looks happy or they look miserable does not necessarily mean they are, especially if you don't know this person. And I'm going to keep driving this point home. He does not know A. So he's just going off of what he's seen in a few pictures and a few vlogs. He does not know A. So he should not be trying to analyze her body language. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Saying that they say how her future, we know we might not be around forever, but like then work on yourself, because you could be around for a lot longer if you just worked on yourself. I'm saying, I was arguing with some girl in TikTok had a thing that says, if you work out to look better, that's fatphobia. And I was like, piss off into the wind, douche. But here's the thing. You should be fatphobic if you're a person. Not fat. You should never judge other people. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, you're judging them here. I'm judging them to a degree where I'm not like, look, they're big people. I was a big person. I am sort of judging them because they're putting themselves out there. But I'm not judging them in a way that's like, oh, you're fat, haha. I'm judging them in a way that says, you talk about your daughter's future so much and how you're trying to plan for her and make her better, but you never make yourselves better, which in the end would elongate your life, which would allow you to be in her life more. And that's it. So,
yeah, dry off.
Maybe you should conduct yourself to a gym, start running. I'm saying you guys need to work on your health before anything else at this point. These people are always worrying about their money, worrying about Abby's future. And let's be real for a minute, everybody. I don't care what people think of this fat phobia, shaming shit, whatever the case may be. I was as heavy as Asa like 5 years ago. And I had a wake up call
to make sure like Abby has food available and like you're like,
I know this sounds bad because I was a large dude at one point, but I don't know why you need to take pictures to see if you have food. I'm sure they have food there. I think she might have been taking a picture of the quality of the food, perhaps.
Priscilla, Abby had to go to the bathroom while the lady was here. So
don't question the type of mom I am. Like, just don't. I
agree with her here. when people are calling because they're, they could be heavier, could be considered obese and all that stuff. But, as a guy who was obese, that does definitely hit a little close to home for me. But I made the right choices to lose the 100 pounds, keep them off. That's really, really important for me, because you know why I did that? I made that choice, and I'll tell you my story someday. I made that choice because I wanted to live long enough to be with my kids, right? People that live these types of lifestyles, severely obese people don't live long, right? We all know that. And so I made the choice because of my kids. So if you want to make good choices and you want to be in public sphere, you're going to have to kind of deal with that. But I agree with her. Don't easiest, and then you stumble onto something like this and it's like a dream come true, because they don't actually work hard. They're lazy. Like, I'm going to prove to you that they're lazy. I don't think anybody who lives their life active as they say that they are, and you cannot be severely obese if you live a super active lifestyle. Just impossible. So a lot of this is going to have to come down to health, and I'm not body shaming anybody. I am a obese individual. I was over 300 pounds at one point. I've actually had a weight loss surgery like Priscilla did too. So none of this is about shaming. A lot of this is about healthy choices that you make, and it has to tie into who they are as parents. Okay. So I don't want to shame anybody for that, but at the same time, you have to understand, like, these people are requesting so much respite help and volunteers and paying all these people to come in, like, so they don't, because they literally physically cannot handle the demands of having a daughter with autism. Because Abby is very active and she loves to run around and get exercise, but part of this argument is going to be made is that she can't do the things she wants to do because her parents physically cannot do those things. Right? We're going to get into that in a video when we're going to talk about, this is going to be a long one, so I hope you can stick around.
And now I'm going to go into some of Josh's fatphobia, which also leads a little into ableism. So if you don't know, A's parents are fat. And I don't use that as a derogatory term. I believe fat should be a neutral adjective, a neutral description of somebody's body. So Josh says these people are lazy, they're bad parents, they're setting bad examples, they're not taking care of themselves, and therefore they're going to die young and not be there for their children. And he also says that A is suffering because they cannot keep up with her because of their weight. So first of all, you cannot tell by looking at someone how healthy they are. Second of all, this isn't something that's been settled. There are some researchers that believe that weight cycling is more dangerous than existing at a higher weight, because going up and down with weight can put a lot of strain on your heart. And I'm not saying this is a fact, but it is a theory that has been put forth by a lot of researchers who know a lot more than I know, and definitely know a lot more than Josh knows. But even if that's not the case, by you saying they're bad parents because they can't keep up with A and they can't be as active as A seems to want to be, he's also being ableist, because there are plenty of disabled parents that may not be able to physically keep up with them, but they will hire people and put their children into different activities so that they can expend that energy. Not being able to physically keep up with your child does not make you a bad parent. I don't know who needs to hear that. Well, I mean, I know Josh needs to hear that, but I don't know if anybody else needs to hear that. But I'm just letting that be said, that there are parents that are in like power wheelchairs or parents with chronic illnesses that may not be able to physically keep up with their child, but they will still work hard to make sure that their child is safe and okay and happy. So I found his comments to be disgusting on that. And that is all I had to say. I know this is probably a super long video, but thank you for sitting through it with me, because I had to sit through hours of Josh talking, and I feel bad for my mom because she had to hear it, and she is also not a fan of Josh because of his misogyny and other issues. But again, thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, or I guess if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you have not already and you would like to see more of my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.